financial aid information session. So my name is Daniel Blakely. See if I can get this work right. I'm the graduate intern at the University of Virginia in the Student Financial Services office. So it's financial aid information. Tonight we're going to be going over a lot of different things, very broad strokes, just trying to just to kind of get it in your mind, to be thinking about it as it's moving forward and getting into that time frame for students and parents to be looking for financial aid. So here's a quick rundown of the things we're going to cover. The application process, again, very broad, general information. A breakdown of what exactly financial aid is considered, just to get a better feel for that. I'm going to touch on a few resources that will be key moving forward so you all know what to look for. And then we're going to have a question time for you all to ask any questions. Before I move on, also I want to introduce my colleague, Sabrina Whitcomb. She's actually my boss as well, so if I can't answer a question, she will. So don't worry.
If I can't answer it, we'll take your contact information.
And we'll call you back later. So yeah, let's go ahead and start. So the first part, again, application process, real broad, but important stuff. So the very first step when we're looking at financial aid is going to be to fill out a FAFSA, which is the free application for federal student aid. They're not available until January 1st for the coming year. So again, this is just make sure that's on your timeline and you are aware of it. Quick show of hands, has anyone ever filled out the FAFSA before? Maybe a prior student? Sure, we got a couple in the crowd. Yeah, I know I've filled it out a couple times. It's not difficult. Average time to fill that out is about 23 minutes is what the federal Department of Education says. All right, and then these next two steps, 2 and 3, are really kind of an or statement, more than likely. There's a few opportunities where you're going to have to fill out all 3 of these things, but generally speaking, you're going to have to fill out a profile, which is done through Blackboard, not Blackboard, College Board. I always mess that up. College Board, so the SAT, prep, all that information. They also handle an application for financial aid. That's going to go through the actual institution, so the college or the university that your student is applying to. Similarly, this third one here is directly with that school, whichever school it is. The information will be found on the website, through their office. The deadlines are all going to be different from what is given for like admissions deadlines. So make sure that you keep those all those different dates and numbers straight. It's very important that all this information gets into the school, but obviously it's not going to be all at the same time. And then the last part here, if you're required after you fill these things out, some of the universities may ask for additional information, which is going to be mostly tax documents. And we're going to go into more depth as we continue through here. So the FAFSA. Like I said, 23 minutes on average to fill out the FAFSA. Obviously there are some people that are going to take a little longer, some people it might take even shorter. So it's very simple. You go through fafsa.ed.gov, and you're going to go with the start here, and they try to make it as straightforward as possible. There are a few different options for filling out the FAFSA, but over 90% of people do it online. It's probably the easiest way to do it, definitely the easiest way to do it. And a key with doing it online is, as you're filling it out, if it decides, if you filled out an answer that you then don't need to answer the next 3 questions, it'll just skip them for you. So it has that skip logic built into the program to make it much simpler for you as the user to go through and answer everything correctly. Also, important to remember when filling out the FAFSA that it's just asking for demographic information, so it's going to be asking for name, date, social security number, and then basic financial information. So it is going to be asking for income and savings. And it's also important to remember that there's a section for the student and there's a section for the parents. So that's a common mistake. People get those 2 mixed up. If mom's filling it out for the student, she might accidentally fill herself in as the student. So make sure you keep all that stuff straight, because that's very important moving forward with the process, as this is the first step. Like I said, the second part, this is an example of the College Board website with the financial aid profile. Certain schools are going to require it, some are not. It's $25 for the first school to do the profile, and then an additional $16, $8? I always get this backwards. $8 additional for each school you do after the first. So some schools, if you're applying to 5 schools, maybe only 2 of them are going to require this application. You could apply to 15 schools and none of them require this. So just make sure you check with the office, check the website, and make sure you stay up to date with all of their information. So like I said, with the tax documents, this is where this really gets important. There is a process within the financial aid world called the federal verification. And this is when the Department of Education determines that they want to check to make sure the information they've been given is correct. It's kind of a random process, but also not completely random. They take a group of people that they think is going to be at a high risk of something going wrong, and then they pull from there. Like I said, it's through the Department of Education, and then after they've selected the student to be verified, each office is going to then reach out and try to confirm the information that was given to them through the FAFSA and even through the profile as well. There's 2 ways for a school to verify this correctly for the Department of Education. The first is a tax return transcript, which the parent would then have to go through the IRS website to order and have it mailed to them, which then they will have to mail to the school. Or the IRS data retrieval tool, which, as we say here, is our preferred method. The IRS data retrieval tool is actually integrated into the FAFSA. So when you fill out the FAFSA, it's available January 1st, it's going to ask you if you would like to log into the IRS website through the FAFSA, and it will directly pull all the information that it needs. So it won't ask you to do anything more than put in the information, the login information, and it'll pull it all for you. Very simple, very easy. There's no worries about anything being messed up in translation or misreading, and there's no worries about any sort of mail problems that might occur with the transcript. So this is definitely the preferred method from the parent side as well as from the office side, because it is very simple and very easy and very convenient. So again, integrated, preferred method if I haven't said that yet. So then all the information that's been gathered through these different applications that I've just mentioned come together to create what we call the EFC, or the Expected Family Contribution. So this doesn't mean that that's the amount of money that you're going to have to shell out at the beginning of a semester. It doesn't mean that that's absolutely how much money is going to be spent. But what it does mean is that we've taken into account the different financial aspects that we've asked about, and we believe that this is an amount of money that's going to be close to that. From there, we take the cost of attendance, which is every little fee and informational, everything that you're going to be spending at a university. So that includes tuition, books, room and board, even transportation and different things like that. Even most schools have a personal expense that they use in that as well. And then they subtract out that EFC that they've calculated, and that leaves us with financial need. So now, that was the basic beginning application process. I know it was a crash course, and again, we'll have questions at the end, so don't feel too overwhelmed. But now we're going to move in and actually talk about what financial aid is. So financial aid, textbook definition, there are funds provided to students and families to help pay for post-secondary educational expenses. And that's going to come into these 4 different categories: scholarships, grants, work study, and loans. As it says here, scholarship and grants are free money. What that means is it's an amount of money given to you, usually on a need-based process, and it's not expected to be paid back in any way. Work study is an opportunity for a student to be placed in a job, or to get a job, usually on campus, which is then going to allow them to work to gain money, so they're not only getting money for the university, but they're also getting work experience at the same time. And then the last is loans, which is money that is given to the student, which then accrues interest, and you have to pay back the amount of money as well as the interest when they're finished with their university.
When does the interest start?
The interest starts as soon as they pull it out, but you don't have to. Okay, it's a good thing she's here. The interest starts at the end of your time at the university.
Depends on the type of loan.
Okay.
So
So there's a couple different options, as Sabrina was mentioning. Depends on the type of loan, and we'll talk about that as we get further into the presentation. So first off, let's break down scholarships a little more specifically. So there's going to be scholarships that come through the college and university. There's going to be scholarships that come through private and community opportunities. Through the college and university, the school might require that you put in a separate application. So again, check with the university, check with the websites, and make sure you keep up with that information. And some schools actually require you to fill out a FAFSA even if you're not looking for federal aid. So again, that's something you need to be aware of when you're looking at these different universities. You may think you don't qualify for any type of federal aid, but the university may still ask you to fill that out in order to receive a scholarship from them. Now looking at the private and community scholarships, again, you might have to fill out a FAFSA even if you don't meet any of those federal needs. And you also are going to find these in many unexpected places. There are crazy scholarships out there, everything from organizations like Masons or Kiwanis or any other local community sponsors to left-handed people or, for having the size shoe, I don't know. There are all sorts of different scholarships, so check them out, look for everything. Some of them are going to be more difficult to attain than others, obviously, but there's plenty of options, even beyond once you get into the university. There are plenty of scholarships for rising sophomores or rising juniors as well, so continue to look for those as you move forward. And again, these could be merit-based or they could be need-based. It all depends on the program, on the organization that's giving the scholarship. It's up to them to decide how they deem the student to be worthy of it. So here we're going to break down some of the loan information that Sabrina was hinting at earlier. There are 3 different types of loans that that you will be able to attain through the federal process. The first is federal student loans. This breaks into 2 different categories below that, being subsidized and unsubsidized, which goes to Sabrina's point of when the interest begins. And these combined in the first year, a student cannot take out more than $5,500 of these. That does not mean that a student could get $5,500 of a subsidized loan. Those are also capped individually. But together, combined, that's the maximum amount that a student can take out. Some keys with this: subsidized loans, the interest is paid by the federal government, so you do not gain interest on that loan until you are done, so that goes towards your question. Whereas the unsubsidized loan is accruing interest from the beginning of the period. Both of these loans do not have to be repaid until 6 months after the student is finished with a college or university, whether it be graduation or other means. So that is a benefit that students get through the federal government. The most important thing about those loans is that they are student loans. So the student is taking it out in their name. So the parents might help them get to that point, but it is in the student's name and for the student. The second type of loan here is the federal parent loan. These are called Parent Plus loans. And this is the parent borrowing on behalf of the student. So unlike the prior one, this is actually the parent taking out the money, agreeing to use it for the education of the student. But again, it's to the parent. This type of loan actually requires a credit check. So the parent will have to be able to pass a credit check in order to receive this loan. And the third type of loan is a private student loan. So this would be through any of the banks or creditors that you would be thinking of generally. And this is, again, the student borrowing the money on behalf of themselves. And they will also have to pass a credit check, as well as more than likely have a creditworthy cosigner on the loan. So now work study, as I said earlier, it's a way for a student to get a job and work to gain the money to go through the university or college ranks. It's a need-based award, so it's actually done through the university. They decide who's able to use the work study process. And this is the most simple version of it. You would get hired, you would get to work, and then you would get paid. Again, very simple. But when you look at this on the application process, you'll go through the application, you'll receive what's called your financial aid package. It's going to have every breakdown of all these different options you have. The work study is actually unique in the fact that on your package of information, it's going to say, just for example, $3,500 work study. That money is not put into the student's account or put towards tuition. that is the amount of money that the office believes the student can get through their job. And they'd be paid that money through a paycheck, usually biweekly. So that's, again, a common misconception. Parents don't understand why they didn't receive that money from the beginning. It's because the student hasn't earned it yet. So the student actually has to go to the job and get the hours to get the payment as they continue. Okay, the last one is the grants. We like to joke that these COGS are not exactly proportional to how much money you will get. Yep, didn't think that would get any laughs. So these are need-based money awards, and these are usually decided, as it says here, by the federal, the state, or the institution. There are different options for different places. Most of these are going to be, or all of these are, as it says, need-based, so it's going to be reliant on the information that's given to them through the FAFSA or the institutional applications. So, as I was just talking about, those are the different ways that financial aid will help you pay for college. As you can see here, there are actually 5 bubbles when we only talk about 4. That's because the 5th one is a very key one, and it's the family contribution. The Department of Education, on a federal level, has decided that the payment of student fees is the responsibility of the parents and the student, ultimately. These are ways that the institution, the nation, or even the state is going to help you to pay for those. Ultimately, it does fall on the family to also bring some sort of collateral to the process as well. So now we're going to look at some quick resources. Again, very broad resources because, as I said, the FAFSA isn't even available until January. So these are just kind of as you're preparing to look forward and trying to get, I guess, ready for the application timeline. So these first couple here are very basic. The FAFSA, like I said before, is at fafsa.ed.gov. FAFSA.gov will also get you to the same website, but through that website you can use what's called the FAFSA Forecaster. And it's a way to put in some preliminary information to try to see what you might receive from the FAFSA. And then the studentaid.gov will give you more basic information. Basically what I'm telling you now, but in a little more depth. The most important of these 4 resources, we believe, is the net price calculator, which you will find at each college or university's own website. And we're going to talk a little more in depth about that now. So the net price calculator was federally mandated as of October 29, 2011. So every school must have it on their website. A lot of schools use the College Board to kind of do a general calculator, but some schools have their own very specific ones as well. The information shown within the calculator is factual. It has to, it's, as I said before, federally mandated, so it has to be factual. But the problem with that is it's all going to be old information because it's from the year before. So it is just kind of forecasting and guessing as they go forward. It's not going to be very specific and definite information, but it is a good way to prepare. So again, if you use this the net price calculator this year, you're going to be looking at the statistics from last year. So this is what the net price calculator looks like if you go through the University of Virginia. We made a fictional student to show you. As you can see, these are the different pieces of the cost of attendance that I mentioned earlier. And then through this, it then takes out the financial information we put in. We put in just kind of ballpark figures. I believe it was $75,000 for a 2-parent household with 4 people in the household with 2 people in college. So very basic general information, and it breaks down what the University of Virginia believes that you will be given to as federal aid or grants and federal aid. So
It reflects what the award package would be for a student at UVA.
right.
Family of 4, 1 in school, AGI of $75,000 and no assets.
Okay. We're just going to leave it with the net price to go to UVA as this amount here. So you can go in with your information, and it's only as good as, just as the FAFSA is only as helpful as the information you put in. So if you put in information that's not correct, then it's not going to give you a factual response. So if you put it in very specific to your household information, this is a good way to look forward to preparing for college and university.
Wait, could you describe like the difference between those different lines? Like you have the federal
Here?
grant, the yeah. That
Okay, well,
breakdown.
first of all, this is the cost of attendance, okay? So, like I said before, it's not just tuition and room and board. They actually put in, depending on the school, each one's going to be different, but the way UVA has it set up, we have a transportation allotment for an in-state student, the personal expense, which is kind of a ballpark figure of how much money the student will most likely spend in the year. These figures are estimates, so obviously your student could spend more or less than that, which is it's going to happen every year. And then as the information was taken into account, the estimated federal Pell Grant is one of the grants I spoke about earlier. That's through the Department of Education. It's free money that you do not have to repay. So that's basically taking $1,000 immediately away from their cost of attendance. As far as the grants is concerned, that's going to vary school to school. I would assume that this one is where it's at because UVA has a special program called Access UVA, which actually is a large fund of money that helps to pay differences for students as grants, so free money. But not every school is going to have that. So whatever schools you are looking at, if you go through their website, through their financial aid information, they will have a net price calculator as well, and you'll get different information from each one. Does that answer it?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so real quick, some key takeaways, and then we'll jump into some more questions for you. So the first one, make sure you pay close attention to each college and university's deadlines. The application deadline is going to be obviously very important to be able to get in, but you also need to be paying attention to the financial deadlines. Use the IRS data retrieval tool. I mentioned earlier it's the preferred method. It's very simple for the users as well as the offices. It makes that whole process go much smoother. So when given the opportunity, make sure you use that. A quick caveat on that though, obviously like I said, the FAFSA is available January 1st, but you're not going to have filled your taxes out on January 1st, obviously. So make sure that after you finish the FAFSA, you're actually able to go back in and put in this information once you've finished with your tax returns, or your taxes to get your tax returns. I believe it's 2 weeks after you've received, I never get that right, 2 weeks after you've received filed your taxes. 2 weeks after you filed your taxes, you should be able to get the tax return and use the IRS data retrieval tool through the FAFSA website.
Right, so what Daniel is saying is that if you file your FAFSA on January 1st and you have not filed your tax return, you will be ineligible to use the IRS data retrieval tool. Right. There will be no data in the IRS website for you to transfer back to your FAFSA. But what we're encouraging parents and students to do is to go in and correct their FAFSA after your taxes have been filed and transfer that data back into your FAFSA so that your FAFSA has the most accurate and up-to-date information.
So do you submit the FAFSA prior to getting your tax return?
Yes.
Yes.
When Daniel was talking about paying close attention to deadlines, that's going to be part of it, because if your school has one of your school has a February 15th financial aid deadline, then you may not have filed your taxes by February 15th, but you want to meet that deadline. Since you can use estimated data on those applications, you'll want to go ahead and do that to meet that deadline.
Take advantage of the net price calculator. Like I said, every university and college is going to have one, so it's a good tool to be able to get a quick estimate of how much money you're going to need as you're moving forward. Continue to look and apply for scholarship opportunities in the oddest of places. Make sure you look at all different opportunities for that. There are plenty of them out there, and there's plenty of money that goes unused every year, so please look for all those opportunities. And I believe the last one, yes, use data retrieval tool. I don't know, again, I don't think I've mentioned that enough yet. Make sure you use it. It's a very useful tool. Yeah, it makes everything simpler. All right, so now I'm going to open it up. Does anyone have any other questions? Go for it.
I'm just trying to understand why I would care about the word study award. It's not really an award. I should see that. You should just cross that out and say loan. Because I assume that the UVA is not going to say, well, we're going to reduce your $25,000 by, say, your hypothetical $3,500 sports study. You still owe us the 25,000, so go get yourself a loan and then use this work study to convince the loan officer that you can pay it back. Does that logic sound right?
That, yes, to a certain extent, yes.
It's not gonna help me with the 25,000.
Right, but also there's ways to set up with the payment, obviously through other things, that you don't have to pay all that amount at the very beginning. The 3,500, the hypothetical 3,500 is gonna be for the year. So when you get your financial aid package, it's looking at the entire school year. So then you're gonna have to half everything for the one semester. So it's not gonna be as big of a blow to the amount of money as that 3,500.
The 3,500, the work study's not going to offset what you owe when your bill is due.
For the first semester or whatever.
Right.
For the
Right,
whole year.
or for the
Right.
whole
You just
year, if
pay
your
yourself
student
back.
chooses not
Right.
to. Right.
Take it out of one pocket. and
Some of
pay
the
it back.
advantages to the work study program though is that it offsets, students have to report earnings, for the previous year. So if they earn $3,500 in earnings in work study, the federal government doesn't expect that student to contribute any portion of that towards their educational costs for the upcoming year, so it's excluded from the whole EFC formula. So that's one advantage. Another advantage, at least at UVA, I don't know if other schools are like this, is that there are a lot of departments who want to hire work study students and will only hire work study students. So it's an advantage to students who have work study in their financial aid package to find a
Fits a
job.
profile, right?
Right. Now, at UVA, we currently don't offer work study to our Virginia residents, so none of you here are going to qualify for work study unless there are changes to the program. It doesn't mean the student can't work, you just won't be working as a work study student.
Question on the loans. You mentioned a 6-month deferral when you're obligated to start paying on that loan. What type of loans does that apply to? And then also, if you were to go on to graduate school,
Sure.
does that get deferred yet again?
So that's, like I said, I fill out the FAFSA. I'm a graduate student, so I have been doing this currently. That 6 months deferral, it's a grace period, is with the federal loans, the federal student loans, which is received through filling out the FAFSA, so it's the subsidized or the unsubsidized. That grace period is 6 months, and if you do continue to go to grad school, then it's, again, at the end of that time frame. So I did not have to start paying back my student loans because I began grad school the fall after graduating in the spring, and so I'll have to start paying all of it at the end. Is that?
Yeah, that answers exactly. And what about the, I hear some talks about some of it being forgiven altogether. Is that already happening or on your horizon?
Not that I've seen. I don't know. You've been to more conferences, clearly. No, probably not. I've also heard.
It's an election year, so
Yeah.
everything is up in the air.
Okay.
The interest rate on the subsidized loan is 3.4% for the 2012-13 academic year. That was an extension made by Congress. It was supposed to increase to 6.8% for this year. We don't know what the interest rate is expected to be 6.8% for 13-14, but it's an election year. Who knows what's going to happen? A lot can change. One thing that probably won't change is that $5,500. It's not a lot of money when you think about the overall cost. Even for an in-state student at UVA, $12,000 is a lot of money, and $5,500 doesn't go very far. So that's why we like to talk about other resources, to continue to look for scholarships, to keep in mind those parent loans and private student loans.
What is the Virginia tag?
Virginia tag would be.
It's just,
Yeah, come on up.
it's okay. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice, which is one of the reasons I'm up here. But I also wanted to give Daniel this opportunity. It's a state grant program that's for students attending a private Virginia school. So
If anyone can get it?
well, I'm so sorry, UV is a public school, so I'm not as familiar with VTAG, but if you go to the State Council for Higher Education Virginia, which is SHEV.gov, I think is what it is, it'll give you more information about it. I believe if you file the FAFSA, then you qualify for VTAG, but you do have to go to a private school in Virginia. No other questions? I can just put in one more plug about the net price calculator. It's one of our goals today, or tonight, was to get you thinking about the financial aid process to, we don't want you to be overwhelmed or confused, because it is an important part of your students' goals in terms of college, going to college. If you want to know, if you want to get a sense for the type of aid you might qualify for at the school your student is looking for, go to their net price calculator and use the net price calculator and see, how much aid am I going to get, how much grant aid am I going to get at one school compared to another school? Because again, every school in the U.S. is required to have one. And if you put consistent data in with every net price calculator, you can compare the award packages right now before your student is going to college. And again, it's not going to be 100% accurate because it is for 12-13 and schools can change their awarding policies for 13-14, but it can give you a pretty good idea. If you put your income in and your family size and your assets, and the only thing you get is a loan, and you do this 4 times, it's pretty good, and you're doing an out-of-state school and a private school and an in-state school, that hopefully will give you a pretty good idea of what you're going to qualify for when you actually complete the FAFSA after January 1.
I have a question. Say you do the applications for December, the pre, I guess, with applications, and you filling out the scholarships. When do you usually find out about that? Do you find out about that after you fill out the FAFSA in January, or do you find out prior to, since you're filling out the application in December?
Which application are you completing for
Like
scholarships?
like a lot of schools have the common application where you can fill out the one application. Some of them they're doing, if you do it by December, you'll find out if you're eligible or get accepted to the school prior to next year when most people are filling out the applications.
A lot of that's going to depend on the school and the admission policy of the school. Whether it's an early action program versus an early decision program versus a regular decision program. So again, I work at UVA, so I'm going to reference UVA a lot. We have an early action program, so students can apply for early acceptance, but we don't guarantee a financial aid package until the spring. Early action is non-binding, so you're not required to come to UVA if you apply as an early action student. Another school might have an early decision program where if you apply and are accepted, then you're sort of bound to go there. And they might offer a preliminary financial aid package, which is why they might have an early application deadline. The profile is available October 1, which is just a couple weeks away, crazy enough. There's a reason it's available this early, because these schools want to collect some kind of financial information from families in order to provide these estimated awards or these preliminary awards for early action or early decision students. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah.
We can talk more later.
Okay.
This is a senior thing though, and you do it the year before they go.
Yeah.
Spring before they.
Well, we'll be available for a few more minutes for the next session starts, so please feel free to come up and ask questions. And there's going to be a second financial aid night in January where we'll talk a lot more in depth about the FAFSA application and types of